I mean, I feel like we all had the same thought when we saw these new iPad Pros, right? At just 5.1 millimeters thin, the new 13-inch iPad Pro with M4 seems unreal. And today, I want to be checking out just how durable these new iPad Pros are compared specifically to the last version, the older design that is a bit thicker. So I hope you're excited for this one. If you are, hit subscribe for more videos like this because they're very expensive. First up is the new 11-inch model of the OLED iPad Pro that I cannot wait to see. And it is stupid thin. The 11-inch is 5.3 millimeters, and it does feel pretty strong. The new 13-inch model, though, is even thinner than this. This is the one that I've really wanted to see. Wow! The thinnest Apple product ever made at just 5.1 millimeters. It looks just silly. And the 13-inch also feels pretty impressively strong for how thin it is off the rip. Now, before we get started, logically, right, the thinnest iPad Pro, the new ones, they're gonna bend super easy, right? Because Apple just made them stupid thin. But Apple has actually announced that that is not expected to be the case. In an exclusive interview with Mr. Who's the Boss, Apple actually described how they put a central logic board with some new material in the middle of the device, basically to act like a spine centrally running down the product, which sounds like it is going to give this iPad more rigidity overall. It's very interesting and a unique property to these new iPad Pros that just wasn't on the old version. So I think it's time to test out these new iPad Pros against the old ones and see which fare better. So first up here are the two 11-inch iPads. And I started off with some mild pressure points around these iPad Pros with the old one and the new one, and they were both completely fine in every situation. If there's a mild bend happening, your iPad's gonna be fine. It's holding up, I would say 1-to-1 with the last generation, but I wanna switch back and step it up just a bit on this 11-inch model by standing up and adding some more force. Because the screen is a weak point, it is way easier to bend it from the back, and I am hearing some creaking from the old iPad Pro. So let's see if we can get this old iPad Pro to bend at all. Look at that flex in the body. Okay, now you can see a massive bend in the old iPad Pro. That's not even close here to being straight, especially when you put it up against a flat surface like a table. Back to the new 11-inch. 3, 2, 1. Wow, look at that flex of the new iPad Pro. You can definitely see a subtle bend, but you can really see it when you put it flat on the table here, and there is definitely a slight bend after stress testing this product. I'm really gonna turn up the pressure now on the new iPad Pro. I am putting, maximum force there. Let's take a look at the bend in this one now. Again, it seems to be an inflection point around the top of the iPad, similar on both models, but considering just how thin this is, I put my maximum pressure, and that is barely a bend in the iPad. So for comparison, this is the old iPad Pro after my most intense bend, and the new iPad Pro actually is holding up better somehow. Now, for all realistic purposes, that was the last bend, but because these are still fully functional, I want to see how far we can push the bend and see if these still work. Starting again with the old model, what I know is the weak spot, and that bend in the screen you can start to see is really pronounced. The screen is like popping, and still no break. I'm gonna try again right here, but still fully functional. That's kind of amazing that they support this much even on the old version. Again, pushing on that central rib, it is just stupid how strong that this new iPad Pro is. Although we are starting to get a more pronounced bend in here. Here's an even crazier bend starting to take shape in the old iPad Pro, but honestly, that new iPad Pro is still holding up with just the slightest bend here. You would almost not notice it. Okay, for now, let's call it there on the 11-inch iPad Pros. But now, on the much larger models, there's obviously a lot more screen and aluminum on both. Will that make these stronger or weaker than the 11-inch? So I started off on the 13-inch models just as I did on the 11-inch variants. Pretty gentle and soft, some pressure around different points points of the device. And yet again, for any basic pressure points, these are going to be fine as long as it's not crazy. Okay, time for some more intense bends on the old iPad Pro, which does flex really easily. Definitely easier to bend when you focus on the weak points like corners, because there's just not as much there. And there's absolutely a bend in this iPad Pro at this point. Setting it down on the table, you can see right here a super significant change in the top left corner, which is where it seems like the weak point always is, near these cameras. Now let's take a look at the new 13-inch OLED model. Some more intense bends, 3, 2, 1. This feels so wrong to do, but I need to find the answer to this question, which is, does it hold up? So there you can see on the new iPad Pro, definitely a slight bend, but seemingly way less pronounced actually than on the old iPad Pro. Is it possible this new one is thinner and stronger? I'm putting some more pressure on, the most I could possibly exert on this iPad, and from pretty much any angle you can now tell that this is not a completely straight iPad Pro any longer, and still fully functional on the old model. So let's bring back the new iPad Pro, which is still holding up ridiculously well, and do our most intense bend. 3, 2, 1. Oh, that is insane, because I also feel like it's just not really bendy. Taking a closer look here, there's absolutely more of a bend than we had before, and it's pretty dramatic. But then go over to this iPad Pro, and it's way worse on the old model after the same amount of force exerted. If I flip these iPads around, you can really see the difference. That is the old iPad Pro right there, and this is the new one. More of a bend in the middle there, where here, a pretty dramatic bend in the bottom right and top left corners. Okay, now to get even more unrealistic with these, I want to put pressure on the bottom and just bend up the top part of this iPad Pro. In which case, it's still fully functional. And trying the same thing on the new iPad Pro, that is a way more significant bend. Just straight up, you can see it starts to flex like crazy because it is so thin. And I will say that after that intense bend, that is where we are seeing the most obvious disconfiguration of the new iPad Pro. With a weak point, it looks like actually down here near the battery on the side. I wonder if these can bend any more. Really, I'm going for the weakest points on the corners here, trying to accentuate the existing bend on this old model. Oh, that just cracked at the USB-C port. I didn't actually know it was possible to crack aluminum there. Are you guys seeing that? That's insane. I mean, surely with a thinner USB-C port on the new model, it would be more fragile, right? Let's find out. Let's do some more flexing of this new iPad Pro. I'm trying the same bend now for the top, and the USB-C port is holding up better. Again, I think because Apple has a rib running down the middle. They've actually, seemingly looks like, fixed a weak point. Oh, as I say that, the USB-C does crack because it is so thin. It was a satisfying crack, if I'm being honest. And here's when it really hit me that the largest old and new iPad Pro are basically performing at the exact same rate. They're breaking in similar areas, they have bends in similar places, and all things considered, the thinnest iPad Pro should not be performing as well as it is. Which makes me want to go back and test the 11-inch models a bit more. Let me push more pressure on the middle. Oh, it is night and day different though, I will say that. It still cracks at that USB-C way easier than I feel like it should. That USB-C is a huge weak point across these models just because there's barely anything there. It's crazy just picking up the 11-inch again, just how much thinner it is. And I am afraid if we push right in the middle on that flex point, yeah, it's gonna snap there as well on the USB-C. You can also flex these on the top and break the screen, of which you're gonna see a lot of discoloration for the LCD here, because at the end of the day, they are just iPads. Now trying the same bend again on the new iPad Pro, and you're gonna get that same spider crack on the top. I mean, if you put a lot of force on these specific points on the top and the bottom, bend it around that frame, it is still going to break. And that aluminum, it cracks similar to plastic. Now moving on again to the new iPad Pro. Yeah, if you bend it, man, that flex is crazy right there. But it held up pretty well. If I go further, it is going to snap just like the other models with these same cracks going all the way down the display. Finally going to try the same thing to probably finish off this model. Apple's thinnest product ever. How does it hold up from the most intense bend yet? Yep, just heard the crack right there. But the aluminum actually broke before the screen, which is pretty impressive. There is an even bigger weak point there now though, so if I keep going, that's going to be the display crack, which was quite terminal here on the new iPad. Okay, just noticing this now on the 12.9-inch model, it looks like the mini LED around these cracks specifically is getting super messed up right there. You can see those dramatic changes in color, especially accentuated on the white tones right there. But wow, this is fascinating. On the new iPad Pros, there is none of that discoloration. It's actually kind of hard to see the cracks unless you get up really close. Now, I think it's very important to review what we learned in this video because, believe it or not, I do these videos to learn. I know that a lot of people don't believe me, but as soon as I saw that new iPad Pro, I needed to know, like, is it a durability risk? And the answer is no. No, it is not. That spine that Apple put along the logic board is very good unless you are bending the corners in. For day-to-day use in your backpack, in your luggage, even if under a lot of duress. From what I've tested today, these new iPad Pros are going to broadly hold up even though they are ridiculously thin. The second big thing I learned is that the OLED display, especially the tandem design, is crazy durable. It's way better than the old iPads, and something that Apple did not mention at all. The screens are just going to, even if damaged, look better on these new iPad Pros right here compared to the old ones. And by far the most impressive thing I learned today is something I repeated time and time again. It's the fact that every single display works still. The cameras underneath every model, even if obscured, work. The build quality underneath for realistic situations is really good. And that's the point that I want to stress here at the end of this video. You don't have to baby your new iPad Pro, that it's actually really strong. This 13-inch model is just remarkably durable. I cannot believe how strong this thing is. So to close everything out, if you bought one of these new iPad Pros, enjoy this thing because it's not that fragile. I have my own on the new Magic Keyboard here with the Apple Pencil Pro. It's a sick product. This new keyboard and this haptic trackpad feels so good, and I have so many thoughts, so stay tuned for my full final opinion on what Apple did with this product, because even from the durability to the actual experience so far, I mean, they nailed it out of the park for what the iPad hardware should look like. Because at the end of the day, I think maybe I just needed to get out my frustrations with iPad OS, which is the software that runs on these. Maybe that's how we got here, all things considered. Thank you for watching. Thank you guys for supporting me throughout the years, and I will catch you in my next one. Peace.